theme of the discussion is tech as a strategy roadmap for the finance function. How can we really rewire finance with the robust data analytics? That's a theme. So what we are looking at it, and also participant will also find a question on their screen. I would request everyone to put it on the answer it as quickly as possible so that we should be able to share the results while during the discussion, during the session itself. And see the data, data analytics, if we really look at it, the way it is there, see every day we are creating tons of data, whether it may be on individual front, maybe on the organizational front. Well, what is even all our decisions, practically, if you look at it, those are dependent upon the historical track records. Historical track records means the past data. Even the weather forecast is also, if you look at it, that's on the data only. Okay, 20 years data, this was the result, this was the situation, this was, right? So therefore, the data is very, very, very critical for us. The data is a jewel for every organization. So I give you one example, how the data has been leveraged to enhance the value for the organizations. In one of the organization where we put in the money in a real estate company, they had developed a tool to analyze the power consumption of the multi-story buildings in UK and Dubai. And they put it on a 15 minutes time slot basis, the power consumption of 15 minutes time slot basis. And the outcome had been, there had been a reduction in the power consumption of those companies, of those buildings by 10%. And this is what I'm talking about in 2007. Data analytics tools is not something new. Earlier, it had been more on the in-house tools or over the spreadsheets, the way it has got developed. Over a period of time, the way the economy has been growing, and there's an enormous amount of data which is not possible to handle it over the in-house tools or the spreadsheets. Realizing this potential, the big tech companies, Microsoft, IBM, and Amazon, they develop the tools. They are the first one. Everyone is having today, but they are the first one to come out with the tools to analyze the data. So, and what is the outcome there? The outcome is completely different. They have developed the tools which is helping every organization to optimize the cost. I'll give you one example. That's a simple one example of the power consumption cost. Likewise, on each and every aspect, there's a way out to optimize the cost. And today, it's not only for the data is not used only for the operational perspective, even for the strategic decisions also, it is very, very critical. And say the percentage of level of absorption is different for the digital native companies and the non-digital digital companies. And I think panelists are more from the non-digital based companies today. Non-digital natives, I will say. So therefore, it is very, very important. The data analytics as a tool is being explored by the corporates to give a better results. Having said all that, but still there is a long way to go. The reason being, the input which is there, which is the data, which is that's a core issue even as of today. Because the data quality which is given, it is going to data analytics tools, is not the way it should be. If we really look at it, so therefore, the relevance which we are thinking of today, it's not coming out. Still, there is a long way to go. So therefore, data discipline is very, very important. So just so therefore, it is very, very important to get into this. I will now go to my co-panelists to know their thoughts on the analytics tools and what are the steps their organizations they have taken to bring data discipline and developing ecosystem. I would first ask Ashutosh.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Yash, for a very important question. And I could not agree more than this because data is the new oil, which is, and the importance of data everyone knows, especially we finance professional uh, understand the importance of data because we are in a unique position to understand data as well as the business and combining two things. But the important part is the basic rule is garbage in, garbage out. As you rightly mentioned, that too, the data quality is very important. It doesn't matter how great the tools are, unless and until the data is of the right consistent, and more importantly, the correlation between the norms so that the inference can be drawn. So that's very important. And more importantly, I would say making data available at the right time. So these are some of, if we talk about mankind, so we have taken two steps. As you rightly pointed, one is the data discipline, and second is to have a developing ecosystem around that. So if we talk about the data culture, so that's more of a mindset that data has to be embedded in every decision which is taken, in every interaction which happens at the various levels in the organization and the processes, and inculcating the importance of the data and making organization a data driven organization. So that's one aspect that the importance of data has to be emphasized day in and day out so that it becomes a data driven organization. If we talk about the developing an ecosystem around that, so yes, it requires time, it requires investment, and data strategy we developed upfront. So how we have gone about is first is cleansing the data. So there are n number of masters, something, I mean, for us there were around 40 odd masters. So material master, vendor master, customer master, bomb, recipes. So first step was to go about having cleaning the data. So that was the first step. And then second part was to have a data creation process so that there should be a proper workflow with proper maker checker approval system so that the data which is getting captured is of the right quality in the times to come. And then the data maintenance is also very, very important, whether it can be a centralized function or depending on the volume, complexity, frequency of the data updation. So for us, we approached the decentralized approach for in terms of data maintenance. And then lastly, that the data should be available to the users at the right time, and it should be ready to use data. So for that, the visual layer, Tableau, was created. So if the whole process structure was that first doing the data cleansing, after that building up a workflow through the Fiori apps into the S4HANA so that whatever data is going into the S4HANA database, so that is synthesized as well as the correct quality. And then because the organizations do have legacy systems and multiple tools and the operating systems which are being used for various functions. So for sales, there is a CRM, for quality, there are other systems, so on and so forth. So then all the data from SAP S4HANA is taken to the from the SAP B1 and all those various tools into a data lake, into enterprise data warehouse. And so from there, the layer of the Tableau has been inserted so that online real time all the users, so the relevant stakeholders, they can use the data. Of the steps we at an organizational level so that data can be analyzed and the inferences can be drawn by all the relevant stakeholders. So these are my 2 cents on this with regard to data discipline and developing ecosystem around that. Yeah. So I will take a pause here. Yeah. Over to you, Yash.
Yeah. Thank you, Ashutosh. As as told by Ashutosh, I think the data is of many types: the structured, semi-structured, unstructured. Maybe unstructured, maybe customer feedback, social media, website, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and other platforms which have been in-house used by the businesses for various activities. So therefore, and it's good to know the organization are taking the various steps to bring discipline and develop the ecosystem. Then my next question is again to Ashutosh. You have adopted this technology, analytics tools. What was the reason behind this? Whether those are really on a cost and ROI perspective, or there were some strategic reasons also behind it?
No, certainly. Thanks for the question, Yash. And being a finance professional, cost and ROI, they are important factors. But data and analytics is a new journey, I think, which everyone is learning, and they are at a various stages of. But simply taking a decision on the basis will not be the right approach. Simplistic way of looking at ROI is how much is cost. Cost has been saved with the vis-a-vis how much expenditure is going to be undertaken with regard to the data analytics technology. But there are multiple factors which are very difficult to quantify for determining the ROI. So these are mainly softer issues, the intangible benefits. I mean, it could be increasing top line. We worked on reduction of loss of sale, depending getting into the predictive analysis, so that by analyzing the customer preferences and behavior, and the availability of data accuracy, minimizing the variations in, so they are difficult to quantify. Results in enhanced compliances and the faster turnaround. So I would say that it's more of a directional matter, a new way of doing things, and it should be looked at as an investment into the future. And if you look at the ecosystem nowadays, the customers are running faster than us, and therefore it's very important to predict the consumer behavior, preferences, and the key, as you very rightly mentioned, that if we look at 5-10 years back, for the purpose of capturing consumer behavior, there used to be questionnaire. The store, there used to be happy, unhappy, satisfied buttons which used to be there. But nowadays, to understand these, you have to go to social media platforms, Facebook, Insta, LinkedIn, to learn about what the customer choices are. So the key is the power to use data wisely, and with this, the smile curve is definitely bound to go up. And from the finance function, if we talk about specifically, so this technology is very, very important in terms of liberating the value, so that by this I mean that making the business operation so light, and so that the business can run fast, and using this data to do the risk, so that way. And so I would say that data, more than ROI or the cost perspective, it's a journey from hindsight to the foresight, which will drive business productivity, efficiencies, and so in order to have the proper outcome and to have the desired outcome, one should look above the cost and the ROI aspect. So these were the few points which are thoughts which I wanted to share on the cost and ROI perspective. Yeah, I will take a pause here. Yeah, over to you.
Thank you, Ashutosh. Thank you, Ashutosh.
Yeah,
I think you said the very relevant points in terms of the ROI and the cost. I think, in fact, the costs are becoming insignificant if we really look at the benefits that we are deriving out of it. I think looking at the ROI, which had been a factor maybe about 20 years back or 15 years back, today it's not a choice, it's a compulsion. So, and let's look at it. How we are going forward this? It is well expected that artificial intelligence, machine learning, and the business intelligence will substitute the role of finance functions or many other business functions in the era of disruption. My question is to Anand Agarwal. Do you agree with this and why?
Thank you, Yash. I was just listening to yours and Ashutosh's conversation, and I think the points that have been mentioned have been so relevant, and it just brings to me that whole thought of getting into a world of haves and have-nots. So digital native and non-native. But I think today is a situation where digital, AI, ML, business intelligence are now almost used interchangeably. And it is not a question anymore of that whether it is relevant today or not relevant. I think it is more a question of how soon and how much. And I think the more we are able to see this in our own corporates, in our own enterprises, not just in our homes and in our mobile phones, I think the more adept we are going to become, or we are going to get used to it. I firmly believe that we are living in the age of disruption, and digital is one of the ways, or AI, ML, or whatever we may choose to call it, is one of the ways in which this disruption is now taking place. And there are many other situations, but let's just discuss about digital and, let's say, the data side today. One major change that has happened in the world has been that there has been a digital reset of the entire workspace. The rise of the machines in the 90s is now replaced with the rise of the algorithm. So AI, ML, these are not very unusual words. Today you can use them in your normal day-to-day language or normal day-to-day conversation with colleagues. As Ashutosh was just mentioning, data is the new oil. And just to add to that, if we are not drilling this new oil, somebody else will. So it's more a question of not just survival for the finance fraternity, but also a question of also learning new techniques, new ways of working together on how we can make the enterprise perform better. AI and ML are increasingly playing key roles in decision making. But having said that, it does not also mean or necessarily mean that they will substitute the role of the finance function. I think there is a reason and there is a logic where both, the bot, the computer, and the human and the workforce will coexist. Like it has happened in the past, when in the times of the machine age or the industrial revolution, where there was also a fear that all the jobs will be taken over by the machines. But we have lived to see that it has not happened like that. But I think what we have also lived to see is that we as humans have also evolved. We have started doing much more meaningful tasks, and we have progressed far more. So the more mundane task and the monotonous task can be left for the bots to deliver, and the more intelligent or the subjective task will evolve with the teams. We are living the age of the digital reset, and in the past, as I just mentioned, we will find better ways of evolving ourselves and our workspaces. Teams had to, and also therefore will also have to get more skilled to progress into more meaningful roles of supervision and adding more value. And together with AI, with ML, with botification, and with a lot of all more new things that we have not even thought of today, I think we are going to make this world a far more, more efficient and far more productive. And lastly, if I were to, add, I think just like as we are seeing in the e-commerce business, where the online and the offline is coming together to form a digital offering, I think AI and ML revolution will or should also remain digital. So some form of solutioning will also be, digital, while a very large part will also require a lot of human skill sets to make sure that we are able to add more value and we are able to make this much more meaningful. So in my view, I think AI, ML, and business intelligence, and which is I think a far bigger area, because business intelligence encompasses a lot more things than just AI and ML. So there is a lot of reason, there is a lot of rationale why this has to grow even bigger, and no amount of just machine intervention or just human intervention or only one-sided growth is going to make this big. I think combined we will have to make this work, or combined we'll have to make this into a much more meaningful activity for the enterprises to take the full benefit out of what these things can offer to us.
Thanks a lot. And what are the views, Sheshadri, you have on the same topic subject?
Yeah, thanks, Yash. I think very pertinent points by Anand. See, I think I have a bit of maybe provocative, maybe a contrary view of how it impacts finance. Right? I actually truly believe that technology, AI, ML, all these things actually strengthen finance, and I'll tell you why. See, end of the day, we all need to admit that transactional piece, mundane activities, etc., that will be replaced. So, if you see over the last decade, that has been replaced. Technology continues to evolve. So does finance. So, if you see finance, we ourselves have evolved. Gone are the days when we were, say, more towards controlling and say traditional bound within the traditional finance domain. Now, if you see, pretty much all CFOs are business leaders, take business decisions, business strategy. The reason why I'll tell you that why technology and say tools such as these will sort of help finance, because I think finance fraternity is in a unique position where they clearly understand the business point of view. They have understanding in terms of what is the requirement of business, what is the strategy. So they play that role. They have a seat on the table in terms of business strategy, and they also have a fair bit of understanding in terms of the tools, technology, etc. coming in. They are able to embrace these tools as well. See, end of the day, you don't need to be a technical expert, a coder, to sort of say that data analytics helps business. Data analytics obviously helps business. To your earlier question, to Ashutosh as well, gone are the days when it was viewed only from the sense of ROI and all these things. Nowadays, it can be a competitive advantage. If you see, there are many companies, even FMCGs. So FMCGs like us. So a bit about General Mills. So General Mills has B2B business. We have a flagship brand, Pillsbury. So when we see actually, so even in B2B business, not many companies have capabilities in terms of data analytics. So the consumer insights, the trade insights, which we are able to gain with data analytics is very superior versus our peers. So that creates a competitive advantage. And one of the key person who will be able to drive such kind of advantages to an enterprise would be finance. So it's true that the more transactional piece will get impacted, but I also think that there is newer roles, say hybrid roles also, which are getting created with all these technologies. If you were to hire fresh finance folks, you will find, see, we all need to admit, right? All of us, maybe we are all technologically challenged when it comes to, if we compare ourselves with the fresh finance talent. They already have worked maybe in AI, they understand what all those things are very, they are in their comfort zone when we talk about technology, right? So there is a hybrid sort of finance roles also coming up, data analytics role. So finance, I have seen many finance folks getting into data analytics, leading a sort of analysis piece. So one, the transaction piece, of course, is getting impacted, but then I think the other window of opportunity of, say, a technologically heavy finance role also is there in market, and will continue to evolve in many organizations. So I think I take it as a more it will be like it will act as a springboard for the organization as well as the finance fraternity, where the finance can clearly play that role. Because if you see other functions, and hence you see many CIOs, etc., like finance heading IT, right? You will see that across many organizations where finance heading IT or working very closely with CFOs, working very closely with CIO, etc. Because I think there is a sense of comfort, there is business understanding as well as a bit of IT understanding as well. So I see it as a big opportunity, and it will continue to evolve.
Thanks, Sheshadri. I think you have said very relevant point. The role of the finance team is not becoming redundant, it's becoming more relevant from the business perspective. I think what we have been doing traditionally, that's changing. I think the day-to-day activities, those are to be taken over by the machines. The role is of currently of the finance, the CFOs, is on the leadership. Not on the currently, the CFO means somebody who is taking care of the accounting and the compliances. Now it is towards more on the business side. It's more of a partnership on the business side, and it's a more of a leadership role in leading the organizations. I think during the COVID period, most of the large size organizations, they were driven by the CFOs because cash was the key, and the cash control had been with the CFOs, and therefore the business decisions has been dependent upon the decisions taken by the CFOs. So that was which means any issue or any crisis that emerges, CFOs are the one who helps the organization to tide over those crises. Thanks, Sheshadri. And my another question is to Anant. The data analytics is frequently used by the organization for decision making. If yes, to what extent your organization is using it, the data analytics? If we look at it from the operational perspective, maybe in terms of optimizing costs, better experience to customers, or the strategic perspective, risk mitigation, policy formulation, or maybe setting up a new business of the project for significant value creation for stakeholders. What are your views, Anand, on this?
Oh, yes. Thank you, Yash. I think data analytics has been a very important force multiplier, if I were to use the term, in our effort to make the operations and the organization far more, stronger. So we've been using data analytics very, very significantly all throughout. In fact, in the last 3 years, we have set up a more than 15-member team, which is only dedicated to focus on using analytics for business use cases. But I think just apart from data analytics, the entire role of the digital mindset has taken a very new meaning, and especially in the last 2 years, and you were also just referring to the COVID period. I think the last 2 years specifically have been very different, and especially for us, a retailer, where a lot of our operations were hindered because of COVID. So whether it was for managing cash or managing costs, I think data analytics helped us immensely in taking both these issues very head on. So just to give you a couple of examples, and I think that will just lay the context to the the answer that I want to give. So using our supply chain algorithms and AI-based tools, we were able to simulate the inventory positions for the forward months if the lockdown continued or was lifted, and therefore we're also able to simulate and take decisions on right sizing of inventory and therefore manage, let's say, liquidity very efficiently. And the end result was that we were able to reduce our working capital deployment by almost 40% during the COVID impacted period. Now, all this was possible, like Shadri was also mentioning, these are all historical data sets, and it is up to us how you want to use it. So all this became possible because there was an analytics piece in play, and we could leverage that in times of need for making the right forward decisions. So I think using analytics or data analytics is a very important part and parcel of any CFO's today's life, and I cannot really survive even without having some sort of analytics available to me on every part of the business. I've become so used to it. And going forward also with the implementation of RPA and even more forecasting softwares, we are looking forward to take these learnings to the next level by mass spacing the bot program to cover non-critical functions like inventory planning or cash flow management or even marketing expense management, etc. And all of these use cases ride on the data lake backbone using analytics. But one thing is for sure, I must say, finance function with these new technologies is not going to remain the same. Automation has disrupted the way we work, and it has disrupted for the better. Even specialized tasks like treasury management are now possible with far better returns and accuracy with the usage of analytics, and we are in the forefront trying to leverage some of these opportunities even better. Analytics actually, to me, is like a brahmastra that has enabled the transformation of the finance function in general, from just being a back office or a BPO with labor arbitrage to a labor automation using bots to the next level of intelligent automation, even using AI and ML. So I think our journey of finance transformation has just begun, and I'm sure this will not be the end of using AI ML, but eventually move forward towards achievement of even super intelligence and a possible singularity framework using even more evolved forms of analytics in the future. So in all, I think analytics has played a very key role in what we have become today. And I really think that the future of finance very strongly hinges on how more we are able to leverage this very important tool which has been bestowed upon us to make ourselves even more efficient and relevant in the times to come.
Thanks, Anand. And Shishadi, what are your views?
Yeah, sure. Thanks. So, see, I think if we were to, what does a sort of organization or any enterprise want from data analytics, right? So, end of the day, it's an important enabler. It's an important tool for us to achieve our business objectives. I like what Ashutosh said. Like it's like oil. So, pretty much, if you see in any organization, you would be using data analytics at multiple levels. So similarly, even in General Mills, so at one end of the things, we are using it to automate a lot of traditional ways of functioning. It could be back-end processes. It could be even reconciliation with, say, modern trade accounts. So there are many things where one, it's AI tools are getting used for, one, automating it, and then deriving, say, insights and data to help manage, say, better cash flows, better response time to the customer. So there are many business objectives which are actually getting driven with this use of technology. I think the other piece, specifically in COVID, what happened is, if you see the organizations which were able to do well, were pretty much those organizations which managed supply chain disruption in the most effective way. We actually, when during such pandemic times, the data which was there, historical data, actually became irrelevant for us. And I think that's true for across the organization. The main, why do we require data? One, to get consumer insights in general in terms of trends, and then to look at forward-looking forecasts or for decision making so that you can achieve forward-looking objectives. Given that the history itself became irrelevant because we hadn't seen a pandemic like this, right? So that actually stress checked a lot of our processes, systems, supply chain, the entire value chain. I think what we relied on is, one, we also stepped up our data analytics capability during this period, because we quickly realized that if we were to rely on any tool to get us out of this, it would be data analytics. How we were able to do it? given that we operate in more than 130 countries, etc., one of the things which we did uniquely, which helped us, is to sort of use data analytics of similar markets to India. We did a lot of simulations where one of the thing which, if you would have realized, is India was one of the market which was impacted by COVID at a later stage versus other markets. So if you would compare US, Brazil, and other such markets, there was a trend line in terms of how which area of business was getting impacted at what levels. So we did a lot of simulation using data analytics, stepped up some of our internal capabilities to sort of make it relevant for India. We had our own set of learnings as well, because wave 2 was different from wave 1 and wave 3 is different from wave 2, right? So we had to readjust to ensure that we are at the top of our say CFR and all the key measures. So as far as I see, I think data analytics definitely is being used across levels, across functions, and it's being used as at an enterprise level as well to make our decision making very sound, and to ensure that we are able to, even if we were to take that risk, it's a calculated risk, and we know the downside of whatever decision making we are trying to take. So I think definitely it's for across enterprises, it's being used. It is just about the quantum. Some are able to use it at a much significant level, and some are just at the start of their journey.
Thanks, Shatri. I think you rightly said in terms of the technology that is getting evolved is we can't imagine. I think the next phenomenal change, what I see in the time to come, be it any function, is the blockchain. Today we are all thinking blockchain is crypto, but it's totally independent. And it is also expected that the accounting, the 500 old plus, the accounting system, the practices that we have is going to be rewritten by the blockchain. So that's the way it is, the technology that is expected to evolve over a period of time. And the way we are doing the businesses, the activities today is going to change just a matter of few more years. Technology is already there. It's just how you get evolved over a period of time. And as far as this data analyst is concerned, I think all the tools are there. I think the many tools are there. What the organization have faced, the challenge is on the data quality. Why data quality? Because that the focus had not gone over there. I think if you really look at it, maybe if you talk to the IT persons, to the 10% out of the 8, they will be working on the tools to develop the AI, ML, BI, but they had no been focus on the improving the data quality. Had there been a focus, it would have been done. Still, there's a long way, as we have said earlier. And now there's a focus which is going on. We see data quality, and over a period of time, the businesses are going to be more dependent on data analytics. That's the way forward, going forward. So there are two questions which has come from the audience. One is from Gopinath Prakash. His question is, ever-changing business landscape demands different information on time, but we see the tech tools become redundant more frequently. Any thoughts on this? Shadi, if you would like to take.
Yeah, I think it's a good question, and I think that's so when we talk about ROI and say effectiveness, efficiency, I think that's a watch out which all CFOs face, and I'll tell you why. Because see, we do spend significantly. You have to do an investment pretty much to ensure, and it's a long-term investment. So no spend in terms of data analytics, in terms of capabilities, is a short-term investment. So we want to invest it and say reap the benefits maybe 3 to 4 years and higher. But currently what happens is the technology, it's evolving so fast. I have seen in my own case in my previous companies as well, technology which we invest now becomes sort of becomes outdated in a matter of 3 years, where there are significantly new technologies which have come in, and where the technology in which you have invested needs to get upgraded, or it itself becomes a traditional way of doing things, right? So this is a watch out. There is no sort of easy answer to this, but then end of the day, and hence it's a constant exploration, right? So we always need to see that we are relevant in terms of data analytics as well. The tools have to be relevant, and that is a cost. So even when we calculate any ROI, etc., we do have a timeline in mind. At least when we decide in terms of, we do have a timeline in mind that this has to yield benefits in a particular period of time. Otherwise, definitely there is an upgradation cost which comes in, which need not be just upgradation of the existing tool. It could be upgradation by complete replacement with a different technology.
Yeah, thank you, Sheshadri. I think now we have the poll outcome. The question had been, what percentage of data is used by organization for decision making? The response is more than 30%, 55%, 55.6% of the respondents, they have said more than 30%. 20 to 30% of the respondents said 22.2, 10 to 20%, 11.1, 5 to 10%, 0, less than 5%, 11.1%. And there was a one study which was done by Harvard, but that was in 2016 or 17. By the time they have found only the 3% of the data is used by the businesses for the decision making. That's the more relevant data. Another, which means is the redundant, not so relevant. It's good to see that's our currently environment is 56% of the data is used for the decision making. That's a very significant development that has emerged over a period of time. Now, I will have just few rapid fire questions to all my co-panelists. And this question is to everyone. The first question. To what extent the operational costs have come down in your organization by using data analytics? Just answer it in 30 to 60 seconds.
Okay, I can take this.
Ashutosh, please.
So, as clear that data analytics is not about cost reduction. It's more about the business transformation exercise. And once we implement this thoroughly, the cost efficiencies will come automatically and we will achieve the cost reduction aspect. And so empirical studies have shown in the past that once you start monitoring, analyzing any expenditure, 10 to 15% cost efficiency automatically gets achieved. If we talk about in the current setup, there are multiple use cases where we have applied data analytics in an effective manner. And the gains have been in terms of reducing the loss of sale by having a proper forecasting and implementing the available to promise tool. It's a SAP S/4HANA tool. And then the working capital efficiency by faster conversion of so we have used data analytics for giving right credit to the right level of stockist and replacing some of the stockists through a dealer financing mode. And the other use case has been on the sample cost and all. So the point I'm trying to put across is that if this tools and the data analytics is applied appropriately, the cost efficiencies will automatically come to the organization. Yeah.
Thank you, Ashutosh. Sheshadri, what's your experience?
So I sort of tend to agree to Ashutosh, right? So see, one, in terms of, it's not about cost saving. So data analytics can help you, for example, it can help you grow sales. It can help you deliver higher sales. It can help you, say, control attrition. So there are many areas where data analytics are used nowadays. So you can't put, if you want to put a number to it, I would say any data analytics guided towards driving operational efficiencies, if the cost saving is less than 10%, it doesn't even sort of make the cut. I have always seen that it's much higher than 10%. But again, it is just one subset of what data analytics can help the business achieve. It's a much broader capability.
I agree with you. Anand?
I fully agree with Shadri and Ashutosh both. So while definitely it is more a efficiency generating mechanism or a efficiency generating tool, but like in every commerce or in every decision that we make, at the back of the mind, we always think of, what is the cost saving it is going to deliver to us. And as Shashatri mentioned, I think it is very reasonable to assume that there would always be at least 10% cost saving. So I firmly believe that, while we do not really quantify that this is the cost saving, therefore we will, implement this data analytics. But I think the reason why we get into analytics and using analytics for decision making is slightly more bigger than just cost saving. So for me, I think if I'm able to improve my profitability by 2 or 3 percentage, points, I think that is a far bigger outcome than just, focusing on reducing cost. Having said that, it is imperative that cost saving will always be there because you are using such a powerful tool. So there is, both the sides, but I will implement analytics more to improve profitability rather than to reduce just cost.
Thank you, Anand. No, I think if we really look at it, the few years back, maybe around 15 years, 20 years back, the organizations were appointing the consultants to help them to reduce the cost. Now, from the last 10 years, I have not seen any organization appointing consultant to reduce the cost. So I think that's a paradigm shift in terms of the way the organizations, the business leaders, they are looking at it. Yeah, the next question is to Ashutosh. See, there's a lot more phenomena on the startups now, and they are disrupting the businesses. I think the non-native businesses, right? Non-digital native businesses. So how are you taking those these startups? How you're dealing with them?
Yeah. So, well, this is a tough one. The startups are disrupting the established businesses, the traditional businesses. There is no doubt about it. So traditional business models, they are getting challenged day in and day out. And I mean, there is a direct shift from B2B or B2C. Now it's a D2C. So that the intermediary is getting marginalized or getting out of the system. So practically speaking, there are two options, so to say. One is to acquire them, the startups. That's one. But there is a big valuation mismatch. We know that how the startups, they are being valued on a projected potential valuation without any benchmarks available. Whereas the established businesses, so they are, there is a history, there is a EBITDA, there is a long, the benchmarks and the multiples are very well defined. So acquisition may not be the right approach. How we have addressed is that I would like to say that when in Rome, do as the Romans do, that we have created subsidiaries. And these subsidiaries, they work like a startups because the established big $1 billion setup is very difficult to change. And there should not be any knee-jerk reaction because the magnanimity of the change is enormous. So how we do it, that we have structured subsidiaries, and those subsidiaries, they operate like a startup. So which are supplementing or complementing either the core business as or some startups, they are being like an adjacent strategic growth. So that's how we have structured it, so that to have best of both the places. So whatever experimentation needs to be done, so they are done. And these startups, they are managed by entrepreneurs and between the established business as well as taking the benefit of the new startup regimes which are coming up.
Yeah, thanks, Ashutosh. I think you're embracing the startups rather than going against them. That's good. I think if we really look at it, the startups and the key difference between the startups and the established player, startups are focusing on one or two solutions, whereas the old business houses are on multiple solutions. If you really look at the banks or the fintech companies are having maybe 5 to 20 products, whereas the banks are having more than 400 products. So that's a completely the mismatch in terms of the looking at the number of products which they need to give the solutions. But most of the organizations, they are going in for associating with the startups. That's the way the mantra had been. Now the question is to Anand in terms of disruption. The startups are creating a lot of disruption. Where do you see there is going to be more disruption, whether that's going to be in the retail segment or in the non-retail segment?
That's a very tricky question. Although I'm more aware of retail, but I'm sure disruption is happening in every part of the world. And there is nothing which is going to get spared. And, as Charles Darwin's theory goes, that, only the fittest will survive. And disruption is one way of remaining fit. It's not, getting stronger, but, getting fitter. So if I were to just look at, some of the perspectives, today, the world's largest taxi company, Uber, does not own any taxis. The world's largest accommodation provider, Airbnb, does not have any real estate. The world's largest or most valuable retailer, Alibaba or even Amazon, have no inventory. The world's largest movie house, Netflix, does not have any cinema halls, and the list really goes on. So the disruption is happening everywhere, and some of these are also examples of retail. So I don't think it's a question of more disruption in retail or more disruption in any other area. I think disruption is a way of life, and I have seen this personally in retail. And just to give you a very current context, there's a website called Shein.com, and Shein.com is going to become the world's biggest fashion apparel retailer in the next 2 years. So today, that space is held by a Zara or a H&M, and the next 2 years they are going to overtake them as well. And Shein is just 6 or 7 years old. Now that's the speed at which the landscape is changing. So it's not just a question of retail. I think the disruption is happening everywhere at a phenomenal pace, and it is for us to just keep pace with how we want to make sure that we are in our own lives or in our own ways, how well we are accommodating to that, or also in some cases becoming creating disruption in our own ways.
Thank you, Anand. I think we have already overstepped the time, but Seshadri, there's one last question to you. Is the data analytics or the digital has really pushed the companies, the corporates, the business houses to rewrite the vision statement to include the technology as a part of the vision?
See, I think so vision statements is a much broader concept. It talks about the purpose which the organization even exists, right? I think technology is a way of life, but I would want to say that it's not life in itself. For example, like the vision statement of General Mills is to make food which people love. That's the reason why we exist. The biggest enabler for us to do it could be technology. The biggest enabler, tools, etc., could be technology. But I think it's still we are not in a place where technology will come into vision statement unless you are in that particular industry. Right? So, like Google talks about the statement of Google itself is to provide world information in one click. Right. So that's what Google stands for. So in that sense, I would still say it's the biggest enabler, but would not be part of the vision statement as of now.
Thanks, Seshadri. And just for information, there are a lot of corporates which they have changed also their vision statement because of the disruption that has taken place.
Yeah.
Okay. And thanks a lot. I think we close this session. There are a few questions. I think we can answer it offline. There are a few questions still there. We cannot take it because we are already overstepped the time. And thanks a lot to all my co-panelists. And this session had been wonderful. They have shared their valuable insights. I think I enjoyed this session a lot. I think that should be the experience with everyone. Thank you. Thanks to all. Thank you.
No, absolutely. It was enriching experience. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Shratri.
Bye.
Thank you.
A big thank you.
Thanks, Anisha.
All our
Thanks,
speakers
Anisha.
and our moderator, Yash, for conducting this discussion. It was very interactive, and you've taken up questions. We've had rapid fire rounds and polls. I'm sure everybody has enjoyed each and every moment of the discussion. We'd like to thank you all for taking the time out to join us today. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you. Thanks, Anisha. Bye-bye.